I will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, Mr. Keenan.
Here.
Mr. Gerber.
Here.
Mr. Reiner.
Here.
Mrs. Boring. Here. Mr. Nissi-Zerker.
Here.
As acting mayor, I want to address a couple of procedural matters before we begin. The revised charter provides that in the temporary absence of both the mayor and vice mayor, the senior council member, based on length of continuous elected service with the city, shall serve as acting mayor. Hence, I am here. Also, the law department has given us a clarification for any motion to pass tonight, or for any vote to pass, it has to be 4 members, as also required by the charter. Citizen comment, we have one person signed in, and that would be Mark Spears, please. Welcome. Could you please give your name and address for the record?
Good evening. My name is Mark Spears. I live in Hemingway Village, 6878 Conquistador Court. I'm here this evening for 2 reasons. The first reason is I would like to thank the council and all the staff of Dublin for designing greatness into Dublin. I moved to Dublin 5 years ago from San Diego, California with my wife and 2 young children. And we chose Dublin over the communities around Central Ohio because of the schools, the parks, the trails, and its obvious commitment to community. In San Diego, I was a civil engineer working on public improvement projects, and I worked closely with the city planners and designers. And I understand the process of community planning and community involvement. With that qualification, I'd like to commend you for the excellent planning and foresight of Dublin and its continuous improvement to maintain Dublin as an excellent community. I do not know of a better community in which I would like to raise my family. I sincerely thank you for that. The second reason I'm here tonight is to invite all of you and the staff of Dublin to the GEO Spring Tour in Dublin this May. GEO is also known as Green Energy Ohio, is a not-for-profit organization dedicated to promoting environmentally and economically sustainable energy policies and practices in Ohio. GEO is mainly an educational dissemination tool to express environmentally as well as economically beneficial aspects to Ohio. To demonstrate this topic and bring it home, I'd like to provide a local example. In Muirfield, there is a man named Charlie who owns a company named Charlie's Grilled Subs. He has about 400 locations in 14 different countries around the world. And about 4 years ago, Charlie was on a retreat, and while at this retreat, he got a tour of the facility's geothermal heating and cooling technologies. And this environmental technology sparked an interest in Charlie, and about a year later, he started a company called Solar Planet. And Solar Planet is currently installing electric systems at public institutions around the state. There's an installation at Sunderbird local schools of solar electricity that now powers about 80% of their electrical needs. Solar Planet has about $200 million worth of these public institution projects planned for around the state through the year 2014. The message of this story outlines the importance of the exposure to new ideas. The outcome of this one educational event is a tremendous victory for Ohio's economy and environment. GEO is hopeful that this spring tour in Dublin will give birth to ideas, partnerships, and technologies that will benefit Dublin, Ohio, and our planet. I've provided you all with a current issue of the GEO magazine that features several pages of articles written by the City of Dublin staff. As GEO continues to coordinate with the city staff and local businesses on the details of this upcoming event, I'd like to come back to council and present you with more details of this event and I'd like to get more involved with schools and hopefully some children and bring it into the whole community. An endorsement of the GEO event by the City Council would be very beneficial because it is truly greener in Dublin. I thank you for your time, and I'll take any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Do you have a date for the May tour?
Yes, it's on page, you can see it on page 18 and 19. It's the 17th and 18th of May. There's a lot of details left to be worked out, but there should be an electric vehicle tour. Also feature a lot of the compressed natural gas vehicles that Dublin now has a fleet of. The fueling stations, the lead building for IGS Energy, which has a huge solar array on the roof that most people can't see, but that'll be highlighted in the tour as well.
Great, we'll look forward to it. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ready to proceed with the consent agenda? Is there any item that any council member would like to pull? Seeing that there is none, I make a motion to approve the action for the two items listed on the consent agenda.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
Mr. Nancy Zerker?
Yes.
Mrs. Boring?
Yes.
Mr. Gerber?
Yes.
On to second readings, ordinance 1913.
Amending Chapter 99 of the City of Dublin Codified Ordinances.
Have a staff report from Rachel.
Good evening. I have a presentation prepared if you'd like one. Otherwise, there are no changes from the first reading, so I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have as well.
Any questions? If not, Ann, go ahead and call the roll, please.
Mr. Gerber?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Mrs. Boring?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan? Mr. Nancy Zerker?
Ordinance 2013.
Amending various portions of Chapter 96, Parks and Recreation of the Dublin Codified Ordinances.
Mr. Hahn.
No changes since the introduction, and be glad to try to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions, comments? Ann, if you'll call for the vote.
Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
Mrs. Boring?
Yes.
Mr. Nancy Zerker? Mr. Gerber?
Yes.
And Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Okay. Now we're on to ordinance 2413.
2313 on our updated agenda. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Accepting the updated estimated average per acre value of land for park fees in lieu of land dedication.
This is the appraisal we have done every 2 years to establish by ordinance the fee when we decide to take money in lieu of land and for developers to meet their open space requirements. Again, be glad to try to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments?
So this went up slightly.
Yes. Yes.
It's been flat for a couple of years.
Yeah, we may have even had we had a down, I
downward
think,
trend.
the prior 2 years ago, so it's most definitely going back up.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Good.
Ann, would you call for the vote, please?
Mr. Nancy Zerker?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
Mrs. Boring?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
And Mr. Gerber?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2413.
Authorizing the city manager to execute necessary conveyance documentation to acquire a 0.279 acre with 0.279 acres as present road occupied, more or less permanent multi-use utility grading and drainage easement, a 0.012 acre more or less temporary easement, and a 0.020 acre more or less temporary easement from Zumfon and Tonaporn Karuchit.
Ms. Song.
Hello, there's no changes since first reading. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments? If not, Ann, would you call for the vote, please?
Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
Mr. Gerber?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Mr. Nancy Zerker? Mrs. Boring?
Yes. Ordinance 2513 by title only, please.
Rezoning approximately 3.02 acres located on the west side of Coffin Road, approximately 300 feet north of the intersection with Ross Common Road from R1 Restricted Suburban Residential District to PUD Planned Unit Development District, Coffin Reserve PUD, to establish a 6-lot, single-family detached residential development and 0.29 acres of open space.
I'll introduce it.
Staff report by planning.
Good evening.
Thank you.
This is a request for rezoning and a preliminary plat for a small, single-family development proposed on 3 acres. The site is on the west side of Kaufman Road, and it's bounded on the north side and the west side by Hemingway Village, and then on the south side by Shannon Village. The Dublin City Schools Administration Building is across the street on the east side of Kaufman Road. A little bit more detail of the site. The site boundaries consist of a lot of evergreen trees there. And there is a single-family structure on the site with a access point off Kaufman Road as well as a barn. They are kind of in the south central portion of the site. And proposed is a single-family development with 6 lots. Lot 1 incorporates the existing home and a new cul-de-sac platted as right-of-way for Killarney Court coming off Kaufman Road, accessing all the other lots proposed. 2 lots, 5 and 6 at the head of the cul-de-sac, and then on the south side, lots 1 through 4. There are 2 reserves proposed as part of this planned unit development. On the north side, it's essentially a small reserve that preserves existing evergreen trees as a buffer to those lots to the north. And then on the south side, there is an area reserved for a detention area for the stormwater management, and then the plan also proposes to preserve the existing trees along the boundaries as a buffer to the existing homes surrounding the site. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the development plan with 3 conditions, and the applicant has taken care of those as part of the revised development text that is before you tonight. Most notably, there was a tree waiver contemplated at the commission level by the applicant, and that has since been removed from the development text. And then the preliminary plat also recommended approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission with 2 conditions, and the applicant will have to pay a fee in lieu of dedicating 0.1 acre of open space for this development. And planning is also recommending approval of the ordinance at the 2nd reading in April. And the applicant is here for any questions, and so am I. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. How is the, with 6 lots and 6 people, how is the detention basin to be maintained?
It is supposed to be planted along the edges and then lawn. It is a flat depression basin. The engineer from the applicant is here as well to answer any questions that are technical in nature.
And who is to maintain that? The homeowners, the 6 homeowners are they going to
That's correct.
create their own sub organization
Correct.
and fund that? Is that how it's going to work? It's going to be self-funded?
Yes. Forced and funded HOA for these 6 lots, yes.
Okay. And how is the, what's the economics of that? How do they just pick a dollar amount per year or per month?
I've actually specifically asked the applicant to prepare to answer these types of questions.
Okie dokie. Thank you.
Good evening, Charles Ruma with Virginia Homes,
Can you please give us your address for the record?
10104 Brewster Lane, Suite 100, Powell, Ohio. So we originally put in a stormwater waiver for this subdivision. We had those discussions about this facility. It's a very insignificant amount of water that we would be putting into a 66-inch storm sewer adjacent that actually runs through the site. That waiver was denied, so the only alternative we could come up with was to produce an above-ground detention facility. That has to be maintained by the homeowners. There'll have to be an annual fee to do so, and basically that will involve mowing and minor maintenance over periods of time to control the water flow through that area.
How is that amount to be determined? Because part of our problem here is that sometimes what's happening is homeowners association members will come in here and say, well, we just haven't raised enough money to maintain our property, or the HOA didn't set a high enough dollar amount, and we want the city to take over maintaining our property. So we're very concerned about the people that take this on have the, wants the foreknowledge that, hey, we're going to, when I buy a lot here, I am buying into a, almost like a condominium fee, and they have to be aware of that at the time of purchase, and then that fee is high enough to maintain the property. So that's what
I think the majority of the maintenance is going to be mowing it during
Yeah.
the mowing season. I don't think there's going to be a lot of maintenance beyond that. We're designing the feature with French drains and enough gravel in areas to require very little ongoing maintenance other than the mowing. We'll have to produce the amount of mowing it takes to maintain that area in the year and base that from that calculation. The only other homeowner fee really will be some type of entry maintenance, which will be very minimal.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, Mr. Ruma, that amount is enough to keep the property maintained in
John,
perpetuity.
typically they have it in their deed restrictions, and it's all there as a matter of record when you go in and buy the lot, and at that time they form their own association, and they figure out the costs every year, have a budget, and charge the homeowners accordingly.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, yeah, I just want to make sure that HOA is set up correctly this time, so we don't see this thing come back to see us again. So.
I think the best way to do this, and I don't know if the council would be willing to entertain this, I know there are comments made at zoning about this facility. If there's any way to forego the stormwater waiver to somehow allow that to happen. The comment was made that there are hundreds and hundreds of lots in this area that have no stormwater detention or retention anywhere in that area. Adding 5 or 6 lots is not going to do anything to the storm calculations. The calculations, while I don't have them on the top of my head, have been submitted to engineering, and we can certainly produce those numbers to prove that it's a very insignificant amount of water. My feeling is making the lots larger and doing away with that facility or producing or maybe creating a park, there might be a better alternative.
Can someone explain to us why the waiver was denied?
Yes, I'm sure Paul is itching to.
Yeah, part of the, well, first of all, it's not necessarily a significant amount of water when you look at the fact that the basin itself is like a lot large, I mean, in terms of size. And the other is, they do have to address a stormwater quality component, which we cannot waive. That's required by the EPA. So it requires they have a basin or some sort of facility to manage that anyhow. So you end up with a dual facility as a result. So really we can't waive, and I think what they're asking for us to do is waive the entire stormwater requirements, and we don't have the ability to do that. And when you look at, yeah, it seems insignificant enough, but erosion is our biggest enemy as a result of stormwater. So anywhere that we can manage it, we find benefits in doing so, even though they may see it as insignificant. We are the ones that have to deal with the results in the end. So that's why we did require it.
Isn't there a different way you can do it, though?
Well, there's many different ways. They chose to do it on the surface. You can do it below ground. You can use a lot of manufactured units to handle stormwater quality.
Was that the
and
tank
detention.
that we did it, was it like Piatas on the corner at Sawmill? That was another way to do it, but that's
another
also
way.
probably pretty expensive.
I should mention that we would not be ignoring the stormwater quality issue. We would certainly be putting some type of manufactured system in before we would outlet into the 66-inch pipe.
Did you present that to staff? Have you presented that to staff so they could look at it?
I believe that was yes, that was in the original waiver request.
And what did you find?
Well, I don't have all the specific details of what we reviewed. We can report that back at the next reading, if you'd wish.
This is.
We're going to get into, very technical questions. I really need to have the technical basis to answer those.
Are we supposed to be voting on this tonight?
No.
No.
Okay, good,
First
because
reading.
I guess I would like to hear more about that, because I do think that we've seen this too many times where it seems like a cost that would be insignificant, but it ends up being where, especially when there's only 6 houses
Yeah,
that are going to bear
exactly.
the price, then we have examples of this where people then come in and say, well, but those are 100 houses and this is 6 and we can't afford it, and the city then ends up having to take it over. So I'd rather see some other options that would be acceptable within the non-waiver component of the stormwater.
And please understand, we're going to do whatever the city requests at the engineer's request as well. We don't want to go over and do something incorrect here. We want to do what's best for the community. I think there is a cost to maintain that. While it can't be maintained by those residents, is it necessary? I think that's a question for all of you to decide, and we'll do whatever is appropriate.
You know, Marilee, I agree with you, but on the same token, we've seen situations where new neighbors move in, and that now causes a water issue or some other issue with the adjoining landowners. So I think there's a balance here to look at, and I'd like to see Paul bring more technical information to us.
The other question I have is, I guess, are you the developer for are you considering developing it?
Yes.
Okay, and I presume the quality of the housing stock is probably going to be as good
Yes.
or better than what's existing surrounding it?
Absolutely.
So what's the size of those lots? That's a lot bigger than the surrounding properties. Is that correct, or am I not looking at it?
The size of these lots are larger?
Yeah, the lots 1 through 6, they look pretty, they look like they might
They're
be.
about 85 feet by 125 to 130
Why does it
feet.
look so much bigger on there than, I'm looking at the
It's
houses surrounding
It's
it.
the color of the illusion.
Because you don't see the other lot lines.
How about Lot 1, is that a rental property right now?
That's the existing homeowner.
Is there a homeowner in there?
Yes.
And that homeowner is bought into, I mean, wouldn't they be grandfathered somehow, that you couldn't force them into a homeowners association?
They rent that house.
Did you rent, I don't know, does Jack rent that place? I thought Jack Exbuler lives there.
Okay, so if he owns it, he can dictate what goes on with it. Oh, he does?
Oh, is that the farm? That's the farmhouse?
I thought that was the little,
I thought that was that other house.
There's a little ranch home out front.
Right,
and
yeah,
there's a
that's
barn
not
in
the
back that's
farmhouse. He
coming
Yeah.
rents that property.
that's the small
He
one.
owns
that's-
it, but I mean, I know he lives there.
He's selling the property, so I would assume he's agreeing to have that lot as part of the zoning and the,
Yeah, as long as he owns it. I was thinking if there's an existing homeowner in there of some kind, that you
Right.
couldn't force him.
That's
that is the
that's
seller's.
both properties of his there, is it not?
It
Because-
stretches out above, I think, in an L. Doesn't it, doesn't,
the two lots to the north he also owns, which we will be purchasing as part of this overall deal, but those were zoned in Hemingway back in '79.
this is the area he uses
One
for
of the,
parking
Adventure Drive.
at like 4th of July or whatever, isn't it? Don't they park cars back there?
Okay.
Would you please show us what two lots you're referring to that you are interested in?
Keep forgetting that.
Oh, that's right. I'm looking at the map.
Yeah, we're looking at it backwards.
Yep.
Where is that?
What am I doing wrong here?
They're right up.
Right there.
So there are two
Yeah,
lots
that's it. We're,
right here that we'll be purchasing as well.
Didn't they just dig the lot just, what would it be, north of there at the intersection?
Those are on Adventure Drive. Those are two additional,
Are those, is that his property as well?
yes.
those were his lots, yes.
Well, that leads into my question, is that why we don't have the sidewalk all the way around, because it looks like a disjointed area that it doesn't connect. And I don't think that's very aesthetically pleasing on that. And especially if he's going to be looking at the two lots to the north,
In the proposed plan or on the area that you're looking at?
the proposed plan. You do not have the sidewalk that goes all the way around the development.
Right, we have it fronting lots only, and it does not go around on the other side of the street where there aren't any lots fronting, that's true.
Well, I didn't think bike paths had the qualification, or walkways or shared paths, had the qualification that it had to be in front of homes. I think it needs to be a full connection so that you can go down, walk around, and continue without crossing the street. And especially if the two lots to the north are going to be incorporated, and it looks more finished if it goes all the way around.
We're talking about along the cul-de-sac?
Talking about on the north side of this road that goes into the.
The one consideration we do have to make there is we have a lot of mature trees there. If you see that the cul-de-sac is curving to the south a little bit, that's to get away from that tree line, to preserve those trees.
Can you show us the site plan again, Claudia, without the,
Yes, as proposed, there is sidewalk from Kaufman going on the south side of Killarney, and then it would end wherever the driveway is for Lot 6. And Mr. Rumor is correct, there are existing trees specifically in this area that we've been working with them to try to preserve by making that cul-de-sac scooch to the south to some extent to create a larger area up here to preserve existing trees.
Can you show us the overhead again?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Now, the what trees?
They're under the yellow line. And on your plans, there is a, on the preliminary plat that's toward the back, you can kind of see that there is this tree row on the north side of the cul-de-sac.
So to follow up to Kathy's question, so you have a shared path, is that what this is?
It's a sidewalk.
Oh, a regular sidewalk? But then it stops?
Correct, at the driveway for the last lot, correct.
So I need to then go out to the, so are you taking me out to the street to walk the rest of the way back to Coffin?
Well, we would
Just
make
turn
you
around
walk
and go
on
back the other way
south.
you came from.
Yeah, you come around.
It is-
Well, you know, really, it is sort of, I mean,
Yeah.
I certainly understand the preservation of the trees, but, I mean, I guess that it's
It's
just,
that much more surface area for runoff water, actually.
Yeah, but it doesn't look finished, like we've been so intent on making connections.
It's finished because you got all those beautiful trees lining that area.
I guess that, I understand why this is happening, but somehow that driveway and the walk, you know, the sidewalk, need to be married properly, that it looks like you naturally end there. You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, you might have to turn around and go back the other way, or you might just walk out to the street. But somehow it has to be constructed in a way that you just don't go, oh, my goodness. The road stopped in the middle of.
Boom.
You can do a cul-de-sac on the sidewalk then, say, just a little turn around for the
You
bikes
know,
and
have a
people that
paver,
know it's time
something.
for,
It's not
go the other
uncommon
way.
for us to have a stub with a ramp coming down to the street that you can either cross the street or,
Yeah, I mean, something has to.
Yeah, you just mentioned the word stub, which doesn't sound very aesthetically pleasing at this point.
Well, but anyway,
Is there
you
a,
get our point.
Yeah.
is there a target market you're shooting for this? Is this senior housing, is it going to be family oriented?
yeah,
Anybody-
some young families.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, that too.
Senior housing.
All righty. Two-story housing?
Yes,
Okay.
one ranch is a possibility, but mainly 2 stories.
All right.
I do notice, Claudia, that says trees disturbed during construction to be replaced with white pines. So how many of those trees, maybe you can come back to us and tell us how many of those trees are going to be taken down anyway because of the roadway?
They really shouldn't be hurt.
We're hoping that none are disturbed.
They're
Okay.
far enough
We have a
back.
few trees out front that we're going to lose, and that's being addressed as part of the replacement policy.
And Claudia, on a finer point there, if you're going to replace them, let's not replace them with white pines. Let's replace them with Norway spruces, because they won't accomplish anything the developer would like to see as far as screening in the long run and noise abatement and all the rest of it, so,
Noted.
okay?
So when you come back, can you tell us how many trees are going to be removed here?
Yes, we will have that
Okay,
information.
so we can,
And then engineering's going to get us some alternatives for retention.
Absolutely,
Okay,
with working with the developer on that?
absolutely.
good.
And you mentioned that there will be no new lots added if this reserve would be taken away. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I guess my question would be, if that's something that was being entertained, would you like to see the lots all wider and larger in that area, and that area taken away and put into the lot sizes? Or would you prefer some type of park or any area that's open space in that?
Maybe staff could give us some input on that, huh?
Yeah, part of the reserve being there is, A, it can't really fit a house, so it's not really, it wouldn't be a buildable lot if it just went away. And then the other issue we've been trying to work with the applicant on is having land to dedicate for parkland, which this fulfills a portion of that obligation as well.
Good.
But we'd still be in the bind of the residents maintaining it,
Correct.
which would probably require a higher level of maintenance than a detention pond.
I guess we could submit a plan and work with the city,
That
work
sounds
with the
good.
planners, and let you all decide what is most desired.
But you might get your sidewalk, too.
That's right. Could you move the street in one more time so we can get that sidewalk?
Well, there'll be room
And
over there.
finish it?
Good.
We'll have you ask that you and the staff work on those issues that were brought up tonight.
Very good.
Any more comments or questions?
All set.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Introduction of Resolution 1113, our reading of it, please.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Napa/IBS for an on-site parts equipment supply center.
I'll introduce it.
Thank you. Ms. Crandall.
Good evening, members of council. This resolution will allow for the city to enter into an agreement with Napa Auto Parts for an on-site Napa parts store within our fleet maintenance building. As council may recall, this concept was brought forward during the budget workshops, and funding was authorized as part of the 2013 operating budget. This will essentially allow for a full-time employee from Napa to be on-site during all operations within our fleet maintenance division. And we are able to do this as part of the National Joint Power Alliance, which is a cooperative purchasing organization that has already bid this type of service, and we are essentially able to provide this service as part of that. I can answer any questions you may have.
So
thought it
I
was a
presume
voice.
this isn't open to the general public to come buy parts.
No, part of our agreement does not allow for it to be open to the public.
So are we charging them rent or lease space for the space they're occupying?
No, we are doing some renovations to our existing space so it's secure, but we are essentially paying for them to be on site with a person, an individual, to run the store, to supply parts. Essentially frees up time of our technicians and our fleet administrator, which they are currently spending hours each day doing research on parts and running for parts and everything that's involved with that. So we did somewhat of analysis to look at what would it cost to have an employee in-house that the city hires, and we also did analysis to look at the time we are spending on parts research and running for parts and that type of thing.
Is there really enough volume of business for this? We have that many vehicles that we need.
There is. We do a significant amount of purchasing of parts each year, and we're also going to, at some point, approach the schools, which is right across the driveway from us, their fleet maintenance, to see if they'd be interested in sharing this shop as well.
So when I read this, you're telling me you're going to have almost $500,000 of parts in there? Potentially. Anybody know?
Right now, I'm not sure how much we spend on parts. I would have to look at that. The other advantage to this is that Napa owns and manages the inventory, so we would not own anything that is on site. They would control the inventory completely.
It says, though, that they could require us to purchase all non-Napa inventory. What does that mean?
We have parts currently in stock that they would manage for us until they're depleted, or they would buy our obsolete parts. So if we would end this agreement and we have their parts or they have ours, we would have to work that out with
Parts is parts
Napa.
and pieces is pieces.
Okay.
So how do we're not going to be buying anything other than Napa parts going forward?
No, they will also source other parts from other manufacturers or sources for us as well. So if
They
we
couldn't
need
provide
something.
everything we need.
Correct. They're part of a larger company called Integrated Business Solutions that has access to numerous manufacturers and suppliers. In fact, it's the same company that supplies all the office supplies for Staples. So there's quite a realm of opportunity here for us to be able to purchase additional items through IBS and Napa.
This is really outside the box. Marcia, what's your input on this?
Well, the one thing, I mean, we looked at it from a standpoint of the ability that it provides assistance with our staff time so that our mechanics are free to do the jobs of being technicians or mechanics, and that they're not buying parts and supplies and running out and getting them. And also, based on the review, it was determined that the cost or the pricing that they can get is better than what we get through our current state purchasing contracts that we have. So based on our review, we determined that this is something that financially and from an efficiency standpoint makes sense for the city to do. And Michelle also mentioned we're looking at potentially in the future expanding this even, she mentioned the schools, but looking at it, is there any other ways we can use this with our other facility items that we have? And they really do provide good accountability and controls that are important as far as spending our dollars as well.
We will be adding on later in the year all of our facility supplies and custodial supplies, so they'll handle the inventory of that as well, which is a challenge to have different people throughout the city control different inventories.
And one of the things that was brought up last fall, I think it was, with the Ohio Department of Transportation, additional dollars that they determined they had available to finance or fund additional projects. Part of the reason was they had identified that they had saved over $7 million because they had gone through this same process.
You know, these items are highly theft, I mean, they're high theft target items, and not even necessarily from the outside coming in, but from the inside. So how is this inventory secured? Is it totally separate from our space?
It is. We've modified, remodeled the space so it's completely secure.
Is it alarmed? And
we have a camera system within the facility, but no, we do not have an alarm
are they going to
system.
lock it up at night when they leave?
That they will, yes.
And I guess I'm just concerned about the security piece and what could happen with allegations that our people are jumping in there, or somebody else from the outside, or other vendors, and then you've got the reverse side of this, the Napa employees, maintaining the integrity of our operation and equipment and tools, which are
right. The space that we've remodeled is far more secure than how we have it now, so we feel good about that. And
does it have an outside entrance exit? Or does it have to be entered into our facility to gain access?
It has an outside and an inside entrance to it, into the area.
And as far as some of the controls of the items that we use, all the parts that we use get entered into our software system that we use, so we can run reports to know how many filters and how many different pieces of supplies and parts that we've used. So we can run that and check that against what they bill us against. So I think we've got some good controls on items that we've used to verify we're getting billed properly for that.
Okay.
Any other comments? Ian, would you call?
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan?
Yeah, I'll say yes. I'd just like to make sure you keep a real close eye on this in the first 6 months or year of operation. Okay.
Mrs. Boring?
Yes.
Mr. and Mrs. Zerker?
Yes.
Mr. Gerber?
Thank you.
Resolution 1213.
Authorizing the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the Franklin County Commissioners for the administration of wireless 911 government assistance funds.
I'll introduce it.
Mr. Summers.
Good evening, members of council. Good to see you. Good to hear you as well, Mr. Keenan. This resolution will authorize the city manager to enter into a new intergovernmental agreement with the commissioners at Franklin County for the provisioning of wireless 911 funds that are collected at the state level and remitted to the county, and will allow us to accept our share of those funds for the services that we provide to answer wireless 911 calls for the northwest portion of Franklin County. The previous agreement expired December 31st of 2012, which coincided with what we thought was going to be the sunset of the wireless surcharge. House Bill 360 fixed that, although it did reduce the amount of the monthly charge from 28 to 25 cents. It did allow for collection and made that collection permanent. So this new agreement will allow us to continue to receive those funds from the Franklin County Commissioners.
Great.
And with that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Since you are not the chief, would you please introduce yourself to everyone?
Jay Somerville, Director of the Technical Services Bureau for the Division of Police.
If you listen to the radio, you can hear him just about any night.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yep.
Okay, Ann, if you'll call for the vote, please.
Mr. Gerber?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
Ms. Janice Zerker?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Mrs. Waring?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution 1313.
Appointing members to the various boards and commissions of the City of Dublin.
Mr. Gerber.
Yes, I will introduce that, and typically Amy would make these recommendations, as much she's the chair of the admin committee, but since I'm also a proud member of that committee and she's not here, I've had the pleasure of doing so this evening. I'd like to make the reporting the following recommendations for appointments tonight, and that'd be Chris Ambrose Grooms, reappointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a 4-year term. John Hart, reappointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a 4-year term. Chris Kelly, reappointed to the Board of the Dublin Foundation for a 3-year term. And Sean Campbell, reappointed to the Personnel Board of Review for a 3-year term. Would like to note also to Council that anticipate that the remainder of the pending appointments, including the Architectural Review Board, Board of Zoning Appeals, Dublin Convention and Visitors Bureau representative, and the Community Services Advisory Commission, will be made at the April 8th council meeting.
Any questions or comments? Ann, if you'll call for the vote.
Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
Ms. Janice Zerker?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Mr. Gerber?
Yes.
Mrs. Waring?
Yes. At this time, we have an item that we asked to be tabled for further information from the staff, and at this time, it's ready to be removed from the table, and it is the remaining portion of a proposed amendments to the Dublin Soccer League City of Dublin agreement.
I'll make that motion.
And to clarify it, the motion is to take it off the table.
Take,
and-
it's to take, take it from the table, the remaining portion of proposed amendment to Dublin Soccer League City Dublin Agreement.
And schedule it for,
Schedule this matter for hearing at the April 8th, 2013 council meeting.
thank you.
I'll second that.
And if you call for the vote.
I'm sorry, Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
Ms. Janice Zerker?
Yes.
Mr. Gerber?
Yes.
Mrs. Waring?
Yes. Council roundtable will start with the committee. Any other committee reports? Staff comments then?
Just the one comment to make sure council saw the information that we had received from Morpsey. We had made a nomination to have Paul Hammersmith appointed to the Transportation Advisory Committee, and he has been appointed to that committee. And this is the committee that does a lot of the transportation project review and recommendation to the policy committee of Morpsey. So it's a pretty important committee, and we're happy to have Paul being accepted on the committee.
Congratulations, Paul. We know you'll represent us well.
One more night out.
Any other staff comments?
That's it.
Roundtable, Rick? Okay. Mayor Lee?
Yes. So Marcia and I attended the March 14th Morpsey Board meeting and Policy Commission meeting, and there was a lot of discussion regarding the track and everything else that goes on there, and how decisions are made and the criteria that is used. And I think that it's great that Mr. Hammersmith is going to be on that committee now, as we really want the committee to, review the criteria that they're looking and using to make recommendations for the use of the transportation money. As you know, the transportation money, both from the federal level, which is where the state gets a lot of its money, is being reduced substantially, which causes the state to have less money, and thus the region to have less money in the long run. So we're looking forward to hearing more about that in the future. We do have a regional policy committee this Thursday, and there's a very packed agenda with all of the legislation that is going on right now that could impact the cities. This information on the Morpsey meeting and the monthly legislative update is left with Ann, and I think she puts it back in our council room. Also, Friday, I attended the Ohio Municipal League Board meeting, which, of course, a lot of the discussion centered around House Bill 5. As you know, Faye Gibson has been substantially engaged in this effort, and Sue Cave, the director, did give her credit, and the City of Columbus, Mindy, a lot of credit, and thanked both municipalities for allowing our staff to really work in this arena. There still is a lot of concern about House Bill 5 and questions about the influence that the different groups that are working on it will end up having, although right now it doesn't appear there will be an immediate vote on the House bill at this particular point in time.
Did the Municipal League testify on
Yes,
House Bill 5?
Yes, and there is a copy of their testimony. It's in this blue.
Faye nor the Columbus representative did not testify.
I'm sorry?
They did not testify. Faye or?
I think that they sent, I don't know if they testified, but maybe Marcia would be able to answer that better than me.
Yeah, I don't think that they did testify. They have been very involved in meeting with Representative Grossman and the committee that's working on this.
Good, okay.
Yeah, there has been concern, which I believe Faye did when she talked to us at the last time that she spoke to us on House Bill 5, raised the concern that while they had been meeting on a regular basis and thought there had been agreement on certain provisions, when the new bill came out, it did not contain those provisions.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, you know, they feel like they're kind of going back to the drawing board again. You know, we're concerned about it, of course, because of how it impacts our collection and cost of that.
Have we talked to Jim Hughes, our senator, about that when it gets to that level?
Yeah, we've had conversation with Senator Hughes and Representative Duffy.
Good.
And there was also a letter that Morpsey had sent in, and we had reviewed that and made some recommendations and changes to that. So we've been very involved in the discussions.
Actually, the Municipal League, interestingly enough, some of the board members are, of course, from Cuyahoga County and Montgomery County, where they, both in those areas, the municipal governments came together and held press conferences on their positions on House Bill 5. So the gentleman from Dayton asked, well, what is Columbus doing? Because we had not done it in that way. You know, we had really done it through Morpsey and the letter that was written, and then the actual Mindy and Faye really working quite closely with the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Keenan.
Yeah, I'd just commend you on running one of the most efficient meetings we've had in 5 years. Can't believe it. And for those that are here for Government Day, you picked a great day to come.
Yeah. I will appreciate the staff's effort to keep the agenda short, and you all for introducing everything at the correct time. Mr. Reiner.
Thank you, Catherine, and I agree with Mr. Keenan. It was a short, succinct meeting, just like we like to see. Thank you.
It was till I get my turn. I attended the groundbreaking for HCR Manor Care, and Jason, I'm sorry if I say your name wrong, Hoffenfelder, Regional Director of Operations, was there. Very nice people. They hope to be open in 2014. I told Marcia, I said, it's interesting when I go to these things, it's rare, or not rare in Dublin, but the people are very nice, and they seem to be as excited as be in our community as we are to have them. So very nice groundbreaking, and I thank the people of HCR Manor Care for welcoming me. I will remind you that the committee of a whole for the finance meeting will be April 8th at our next meeting at 6 o'clock. And this also includes the President's Cup proposal. So make sure you have that on your calendar. Other things to make sure you have on your calendar is a literacy event at Wright Elementary. And the 3rd of April, on the 4th, remember the Jig Thursday in historic Dublin. And you all have this invitation in your folder. It's Mr. Hidaka's festival. please respond, because it's always a very nice event that they put on for us. At this time, I will call for adjournment. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
There you go.
I feel like we should applaud.